In the dark shadows, in the white cold, fearlessly we search for knowledge new and old. We drink the strong spirits and read the ancient tomes. The order of the Abracast. We are the brave and the bold. The Abracast. Occult, history, conspiracy, and violence.
Welcome, everybody. This is John. You're listening to the Abracast. Unfortunately, I had to skip a week of this Zarathustra business. I've got slammed I got fucking slammed by a summer flu or something, and I was out, bros. I'm still kind of fighting it, but again, but the snot has stopped leaking directly from my face 100% of the time. So I thought I would try to jump on here and get an episode done. Another thing that might be different is I'm not doing these live anymore. Trying to find filler for the middle of the show while I run and get a new drink has gotten tiresome for me. So we're not going to stop doing Zarathustra. Like, I'm a completist, and we're not even halfway through this thing, so we're not going to stop doing it. We're just switching to a more manageable sort of thing, because I hate the idea of you guys having like shitty, having to listen to this on like shitty microphones and all this other kind of stuff. So, not getting too far into it, but so let's see, there's some things going on. We've, relaunched Patreon. We've reorganized they call them tiers. I call them degrees. So there's like a couple of degrees of the Order of the Abracast out there now. Two of the degrees are totally free. So, but they're scaling up and up, and the sixth one is going to drop here pretty soon. It's going to depend on whenever I can get my deck of tarot cards done. So for those of you guys who don't know, because I realize I don't talk about this a lot on the show, I'm designing a deck of tarot cards. So the wands, the cups, the swords, and so the way that I call them, the wands, the vessels, the swords, and the coins are all done, and the three septenaries of the major arcana are in various states of being completed. If you want to check out early versions, they're not locked down, but if you want to check out my progress, I suggest you signing into the mailing list. You sign into the mailing list and you get access to an info dump with basically all my work on tarot cards is in there, including the designs I'm doing. And yes, the mailing list is the second degree of the second degree. It's called the Fulgur Correspondentia. So you can find information on all of the degrees at abracast.com. Just go to the degree section, spells it all out, and what you get for each degree, and so on and so forth. So I know you guys aren't here to listen to me babble about tarot cards and all this other kind of stuff. I want to try to just check in with them because I'm very excited about the project, and a lot of the work that I've done with them is not to just mimic the weight deck, or not just to mimic the Toth deck, which when you look at these alternate things. Like you see a lot of people just sort of redoing, and that's fine. That's great. I'm glad, like, the people I'm not saying mine's any better or any worse or whatever, but I spent a lot of time with the research that I've done and presented here on the show to come up with something that might have a foundation in weight, or might have a foundation in Crowley, the Toth deck, or whatever. But I believe it's far enough away from each to kind of be its own thing. You could see my love for the Weight Rider deck in there, though. Like I said, if you want to check it out, if you want to check out my progress, you could just sign into the mailing list, Fulgor Correspondentia. So let's get into the Zarathustra. This book isn't gonna fucking read itself. This is the time where, if you're playing along at home, you might like to grab your vessel of the art, mix up your weapon for mass distraction, and use it to become the Ubermensch, the Overman. This is what Zarathustra has to say on the pitying. My friends, a gib or a gibe was related to your friend. Look at Zarathustra. Does he not walk among us as if we were animals? But or better said, he who has knowledge walks among men as among animals. And to him who has knowledge, man himself is the animal with the red cheeks. And how did this come about? Is it not because man has had to be ashamed too often? Oh, my friends, thus speaks he who has knowledge. Shame, shame, shame. That is the history of man. And this is why he who is noble bids himself not to shame. Shame he imposes on himself before all who suffer. Verily, I do not like them, the merciful who feel blessed in their pity. They are lacking too much in shame. If I must pity, at least I do not want it known. And if I do pity, it is preferably from a distance. I should also like to shroud my face and flee before I am recognized, and thus I bid you do, my friends. Would that my destiny lead those like you, who do not suffer across my way, and those with whom I may share hope and meal and honey. Verily, I may have done this and that for sufferers, but always I seemed to have done better when I learned to feel better joys. As long as there have been men, men have too little joy. And that alone, my brothers, is our original sin. In learning better to feel joy, we learn best not to hurt others, but to plan hurt for them. Therefore, I wash my hand when it has helped the sufferer. Therefore, I wipe even my soul, having seen the sufferer suffer, and I was ashamed for the sake of his shame. And when I helped him, I transgressed grievously against his pride. Great indebtedness does not make men grateful, but vengeful. And if a little charity has not forgotten, it turns into a gnawing worm. Be reserved in accepting, distinguish by accepting. Thus, I advise those who have nothing to give, but I am a giver of gifts. I like to give. As my friend to friends, strangers, however, and the poor made themselves pluck the fruit from the tree that will cause them less shame. But beggars should be abolished entirely. Verily, it is annoying to give to them, and it is annoying not to give to them. and also sinners as bad conscience. Believe me, my friends, the bite of conscience teaches men to bite. Worst of all, however, are pretty thoughts. Verily, even evil deeds are better than petty thoughts. Sorry, it's petty thoughts. Verily, even evil deeds are better than petty thoughts. To be sure, you say the pleasures in a lot of petty hastiness saves us from many a big evil deed. But here, one should not wish to save. An evil deed is like a boil. It itches and it irritates and breaks open. It speaks honestly, behold, I am disease. Thus speaks the evil deed, that is its honesty. But a petty thought is like a fungus. It creeps and it stoops and does not want to be anywhere until the whole body is rotten and withered with little fungi. But to him who is possessed by the devil, I whisper this word, better for you to rear up your devil. Even for you there is still a way to greatness. My brothers, one knows a little too much about everybody, and we can even see through some men, and yet we can by no means pass through them. It is difficult to live with people because it is so difficult to be silent and not against him who is repugnant to us. Are we most unfair, but against him who is no concern of ours? But if you have a suffering friend, be a resting place for his suffering, but a hard bed, as it were, a field cot, thus you will provide him best. And if a friend does you evil, then say, I forgive you what you did to me, but that you have done it to yourself, how could I forgive that? Thus speaks all great love. It overcomes even forgiveness and pity. One ought to hold on to one's heart, for if one lets it go, one soon loses control of the head too. And alas, where in the world has there been more folly than among the pitying? And what in the world has caused more suffering than the folly of pitying? Woe to all who love without having a height that is above their pity. Thus spoke the devil to me once. God, too, has his hell. That is his love for man. And most recently I heard him say this: God is dead. God died of his pity for man. Thus he warned of pity. From there a heavy cloud will yet come to man, and verily I understand weather signs, but mark this too. All great love is even above all its pity, for it still wants to create the beloved. Myself I sacrifice to my love, and my neighbor as myself, and thus runs the speech of all the creators, but all creators are hard. Thus spoke Zarathustra. So this kind of seems like an even more introspective version of the road to hell is paved with good intentions sort of business. And it also speaks to me of this radical responsibility we've been talking about lately. Like, he's like, I can forgive that you said that shit about me, but I can't forgive that you are the one that said it. Like, I can't believe you brought this judgment upon yourself by saying it. I think that's something that we could learn from in this day and age. This is also why I believe Freemasonry is important, because they teach these guys to keep secrets, and they keep secrets about doing stupid shit like dressing up and do play acting, like they're like they don't talk about the stuff they do in there because it's just silly. But it's like, if you can't keep your mouth shut about something silly, how can you keep your mouth shut about something that is important? I think it puts trust and self-discipline in perspective. I think this has a lot to say about that. I could be wrong. What do you think? I feel like I'm dragging out. I'm not going as fast as usual. I'm working on my NPR style. Sorry about my nose. Like I said, I've been sick. All right, the next one on priests. This is going to be good, I bet. Once Zarathustra gave his disciples a sign and spoke these words to him. Here are priests, and though they are my enemies, pass by them silently with sleeping swords. Among them, too, there are heroes. Many of them have suffered too much. Therefore, they want to make others suffer. They are evil enemies. Nothing is more vengeful than their humility, and whoever attacks them soils himself easily. Yet, my blood is related to theirs, and I want to know that my blood is honored even in theirs. And when they had passed, pain seized Zarathustra, and he had not wrestled long with his pain when he began to speak thus. I am moved by compassion for these priests. I also find them repulsive. But that matters least of all to me, since I have been among men before. I suffer and have suffered with them. Prisoners they are to me, and marked men. He whom they call Redeemer has put them in fetters of false values and delusive words. Would that someone would yet redeem them from their Redeemer. Once, when the sea cast them out, they thought that they were landing on an island, but behold, it was a sleeping monster. False values and delusive words, these were the worst of monsters for mortals. And long does calamity sleep and wait in them. And eventually it comes and wakes and eats and devours what built huts upon it. And behold, these huts which these priests built, churches they call their sweet-smelling caves. Oh, that falsified light, that musty air, and the soul is not allowed to soar to its heights. For thus their faith commands, quote, crawl up the stairs on your knees, ye sinners, unquote. Verily, rather would I see even the shameless than these contorted eyes of their shame and devotion, and who created for themselves such caves and stairways of repentance. Was it not such as wanted to hide themselves and were ashamed before the pure sky? And only when the pure sky again looks through into the foundation of your souls, you who were virtuous, but like the boar's snout, my words shall tear open the foundation of your souls. A plowshare will I be to you, All the secrets of your foundations should come to light. And when you lie uprooted and broken in the sun, then will your lies also be separated from your truths. For this is your truth. You are too pure for the fifth of the words. Revenge, punishment, reward, retribution. You love your virtue as a mother her child, but when has mother ever wished to be paid for her love? Your virtue is what is dearest to you. The thirst of the ring lives in you, and every ring strives and turns to reach itself again. And like the dying star is every work of your virtue. Its light is always still on its way, and it wanderers, and when it no longer be on its way, thus is the light of your virtue is still on its way, even when the work has been done. Although it be forgotten and dead, the ray of its light still lives and wanders, that your virtue, your self, is not something foreign, a skin, a cloak. That is the truth from the foundation of your souls, you who are virtuous. Yet there are those for whom virtue is the spasm under the scourge. Yet there are those for whom virtue is the spasm under the scourge, and you have listened to their clamor too much. And there are others who call it virtue when their vices grow lazy, and when their hatred and their jealousy stretch their limbs for once, then their justice comes to life and rubs its sleepy eyes. And there are others who are drawn downwards, their devils draw them. And the more they sink, the more fervently glow their eyes, and their lust for their God. Alas, their clamor too has reached your ears. You who are virtuous, what I am not, that to me are God and virtue. And there are others who come along heavy and creaking like carts, carrying stones downhill, and they talk much of their dignity and their virtue, and they call their break virtue. And there are others who are like cheap clocks that must be wound. They tick, and they want the tick-tock to be called virtue. Verily, I have my pleasure in these. Wherever I find such clocks, I shall wound them with the mockery, and they shall whir for me. And others are proud of their handful of justice and commit outrages against all things for its sake, until the world is drowned in their injustice, until the world is drowned in their injustice. Oh, how ill the word! Virtue comes out of their mouths, and when they say, I am just, it always sounds like, I am just, revenged with their virtue. And they want to scratch out the eyes of their enemies, and they exalt themselves only to humble others. I keep coming back to this idea that Nietzsche predicted or sensed the coming of social justice warriorism, and this is a great passage. I'm going to just back up, just so I can reiterate, because I kind of zoned out. I was just reading. Okay, so I'm going to back up. I'm going to do the whole paragraph over again, and just keep that in mind, this whole social justice warriorism thing. And others are proud of the handful of justice and commit outrages against all things for its sake, till the world is drowned in their injustice. Oh, how ill the word virtue comes out of their mouths. And when they say, I am just, it always sounds like I am just revenged. And with their virtue, they want to scratch out the eyes of their enemies and exalt themselves only to humble others. God, man, you can see that in cancel culture, can't you? Back to it. Sorry. I was trying not to jump in too much. And then again, there are such as sit in their swamp and speak thus out of the reeds. Virtue that is sitting still in a swamp. We bite no one and avoid those who want to bite. In all things we hold the opinion that is given to us. And then again, there are such as love gestures. And I think that virtue is some kind of gesture. Their knees always adore, their hands are hems to virtue, but their hearts knows nothing about it. And then, again, there are such as consider it a virtue to say virtue is necessary, but at bottom they believe only that the police is necessary. This is necessary. I'm sorry. One of the happiest days of my life just came last week when Tool put their whole library on Spotify. So I've been tooling out for like they do the song called the Holocaust of the Carrots, I think it's called. Sorry, I had to get back to it. And some who cannot see what is high in man call virtue that they see all too closely what is low in man. Thus, they call their evil eye virtue, and some want to be edified and elevated, and they call that virtue, while others want to be bowled over, and they call that virtue too. And thus almost all believe that they have a share in virtue. And at the very least, everyone wants to be an expert on good and evil. Yet Zarathustra did not come to say to all these liars and fools, what do you know of virtue? What could you know of virtue? Rather, that you, my friends, might grow weary of the old words you have learned from the fools and the liars. Weary of the words reward, retribution, punishment, and revenge, injustice, and weary of saying what makes an act good is that it is unselfish. Oh, my friends, that yourself be in your deeds as the mother is in her child, and that be your word concerning virtue. Verily, I may have taken 100 words from you and the dearest toys of your virtue, and now you are angry with me as children are angry. You ever get in an argument with an SJW? Let me reread that. Verily, I may have taken hundreds of words from you and the dearest toys of your virtue, and now you are angry with me as children are angry. They played by the sea, and the wave came and carried off their toy to the depths, and now they are crying. But the same wave shall bring them new toys and shower new colorful shells before them. Thus they will be comforted, and like them, you too, my friends, shall have your comfortings and new colorful shells. Thus spoke Zarathustra. Thank you to all of our Patreon and Subscribestar supporters. Thank you guys very much.
Learn more at abracast.com. Get bonus content and access to the private Abracast workgroup by signing up for the mailing list. Get all that plus many exclusive episodes by supporting the show at patreon.com or subscribestar.com.
All right. Okay, we're back to Nietzsche, thus Spake Zarathustra. We're in the second part, and this speech is called On the Rabble. Life is a well of joy, but where the rabble drinks to, all wells are poisoned. I am fond of all that is clean, but I have no wish to see the grinning snouts and the thirst of the unclean. They cast their eyes into the well. Now their revolting smile shines up out of the well. They have poisoned the holy water with their lustfulness, and when they called their dirty dreams pleasure, they poisoned the language too. The flame is vexed. When their moist hearts come near the fire, the spirit itself seethes and smokes where their rabble steps near the fire. In their hands all fruit grows, sweetish, and over mellow. Their glance makes the fruit tree a prey on the wind and wither in its crown. And some who turned away from life only turned away from rabbles. They did not want to share well the flame and the fruit with the rabble. And some who went to the wilderness and suffered thirst with the beast of prey merely did not want to sit around the cistern with the filthy camel drivers. And some who came along like annihilators and like a hailstorm to all orchards merely wanted to put a foot into the gaping jaws of the rabble to plug up its throat. They bite on which I gagged the most is not the knowledge that life itself requires hostility and death and torture crosses. God damn it, I gotta read that again. The bite on which I gagged the most is not the knowledge that life itself requires hostility and death and torture crosses, but once I asked and I almost choked by my question, what does life require even the rabble? Are poisoned wells required? Are stinking fires and soiled dreams and maggots in the bread of life? Not my hatred, but my nausea gnawed hungrily at my life. Alas, I often grew weary of the spirit when I found that even the rabble had esprit. And I turned my back on those who rule when I saw what they now call ruling, higgling and haggling for power, and the rabble. Wow. I mean, okay, so, he said some pretty crazy shit about the rabble, but think about this sentence in the illegal immigration debut, the refugee, the crisis at the border, whatever you call it. I'm going to read the whole thing again. Not the whole fucking thing. I'm going to read this whole part again. Oh, is this what I want to read again? Not my hatred, but my nausea gnawed hungrily at my life. Alas, I often grew weary of the spirit when I found that even the rabble had a spree, and I turned my back on those who rule when I saw that they what they now call ruling, higgling and haggling for power with the rabble. I have lived with closed ears among people with foreign tongues. Would that the tongue of their higgling and their haggling for power might remain foreign to me. And holding my nose, I walked disgruntled through all of yesterday and today, and verily, all of yesterday and today smells foul of writing rabble. Like a cripple who has become deaf and blind and dumb. Deaf and blind and dumb and born to follow. Let me lay my golden hand upon you. Sorry, like I said, it's been Tool o'clock around here lately. Thus have I lived for many years, lest I live with the powers, writing the pleasure, rabble, laboriously and cautiously my spirit climbed steps and alms of pleasure, and with were its refreshment, and life crept along for the blind as on a cane. What was it that happened to me? How did I redeem myself from nausea? And who rejuvenated my sight? And how did I fly to the height where no more rabble sits by the well? Was it my nausea which created wings for me and water divining powers? Verily, I had to fly to the verily I had to fly to the highest spheres that I might find the fount of pleasure again. And oh, I found it, my brothers, and here in the highest spheres the fount of pleasure wells up for me, and here is a life of which the rabble does not drink. You flow for me almost too violently, fountain of pleasure. And often you empty the cup again by wanting to fill it, and I must still learn to approach you more modestly. All too violently, my heart still flows towards you, my heart upon which my summer burns short, hot, melancholy, over blissful. How my summer heat craves your coolness. Gone is the hesitant gloom of my spring, and gone is the malice of my snowflakes in June. Summer have I become entirely, and summer noon. A summer in the highest spheres with the cold well and blissful silence. Oh, come, my friends, that the silence may become still more blissful. For this is our height and our home, and we live here too, high and steep for all the unclean in their thirst. Cast your pure eyes into the well of my pleasure, friends. And how should that make it muddy? It shall laugh back at you in its own purity. On the tree future we build our nest. And in our solitude, eagles shall bring us nourishment in their beaks, and verily no nourishment which the unclean might share. They would think that these were devouring fire, and that they would burn their mouths. Verily we keep no homes. Here, for the unclean, our pleasures would be an ice cave. In their bodies, in their spirits. This reminds me of Fight Club, right? Slide. And we want to live over them like strong winds, neighbors of the eagles, neighbors of the snow, and neighbors of the sun, and thus live strong winds like a wind I yet want to blow among them one day. and with my spirit take the breath of their spirit, thus my future wills it. Verily a strong wind is Zarathustra for all who are low, and his counsel he gives to all his enemies, and all who spit and spew, beware of spitting against the wind. Thus spake Zarathustra. All right, so yeah, so for those of you guys who question what all this means, you question me about like, yes, but what does it mean to be the Overman, and like, what does it mean? For the Lessons of the Zarathustra episodes, that's kind of where we get into the examining the philosophical implications of this stuff. This sort of series is just getting through the meat and potatoes of it, and we kind of dissect it over there, which they're fellow craft episodes. So it's like $3 a month to get into them. There's 2 right now. There's about to be 3. But I'm super interested. And when we get to this specific sermon on the Lessons of Zarathustra, we're about to do one of the, I keep calling them sermons. I think they're called speeches. But this is one of the famous ones. It's called On the Tarantulas. So I'll go through and I'll try not to jump ahead about what I think is going on here, but you're going to be able to pick it out, I think, pretty fast. And this will be the last one for this evening, then we'll wrap it up, okay? Behold. Hold on, let me get back into it. Behold, this is the whole of the tarantula. Do you want to see the tarantula itself? Here hangs its web, touch it, that it tremble. There it comes willingly. Welcome, tarantula. Your triangle and symbol sits on your back. And I also know what sits in your soul. Revenge sits in your soul. Wherever you bite, black scabs grow, and your poison makes the soul whirl with revenge. And I speak to you in parable, you who make souls whirl, your preachers of equality. To me, you are tarantulas and secretly vengeful, but I shall bring your secrets to life, to light. I shall bring your secrets to light. Therefore, I laugh in your face with my laughter of its heights. Therefore, I tear at your webs, and at your rage may lure you out of your lie holes, and your revenge may leap out from behind your word justice. For that man be delivered from revenge. That is, for me, the bridge to the highest hope, and a rainbow after long storms. The tarantulas, of course, would have it otherwise. What justice means to us precisely, to the world be filled with the storms of our revenge. Thus they speak to each other. We shall wreak vengeance and abuse on all those equals we are not. Thus do the tarantula hearts vow, and will to equality shall henceforth be the name for virtue, and against all that has power we want to raise our clamor. To you preachers of equality, the tyrannomania of impotence clamors thus out for your equality. You must your most secret ambition to be tyrants thus should themselves in words of virtue, aggrieved conceit, repressed envy, perhaps the conceit and the envy of your fathers erupt from you as a flame and from the frenzy of revenge. That was silent in the Father speaks in the Son, and often I found that the Son, the unveiled secret of the Father. There are like enthusiasts, yet it is not the heart that fires them, but revenge. And when they become elegant and cold, it is not the spirit, but envy that makes them elegant and cold. Their jealousy leads them from even on the paths of thinkers. And this is the sign of their jealousy. They always go too far till their weariness must in the end lie down to sleep in the snow. Out of every one of their complaints sounds revenge in their praise. There is always a sting, and to be the judge seems bliss to them. It's like Nietzsche's on Twitter. I swear to fucking God. But thus I counsel you, my friends, mistrust all in whom this impulse to punish is powerful. They are people of low sort and stock. The hangman and the bloodhound look out of their faces, and mistrust all those who talk much of their justice. Verily, their souls lack more than honey, and when they call themselves the good and the just, do not forget that they would be Pharisees if only they had power. My friends, I do not want to be mixed up and confused with others. Some preach my doctrine of life and are at the same time preachers of equality and tarantulas. Although they are sitting in their holes, these poisonous spiders with their backs turned to life, they speak in favor of life, but only because they wish to hurt. They wish to hurt those who now have power, for among these the preaching of death is still at most home. If it were otherwise, the tarantulas would teach otherwise. They themselves were once the foremost slanderers of the world and burners of heretics. Cancel culture. Psst. Cancel culture. SJW. I do not wish to be mixed up and confused with these preachers for equality. For to me, justice speaks thus: men are not equal, nor shall they become equal. What would my love for the overman be if I spoke otherwise? On 1,000 bridges and paths they shall throng to the future, and even more war and inequality shall divide them. Thus does my great love make me speak. And in their hostilities they shall become inventors of images and ghosts, and with their images and ghosts they shall yet fight the highest fight against one another. Good and evil, rich and poor, and high and low. In all the names of values, arms shall they be, and clattering. Signs that life must overcome again and again. Life wants to build itself up into a heights with pillars and steps, and it wants to look into vast distances and out towards stirring beauties, and therefore it requires height. And because it requires height, it requires steps and contradiction among the steps and the climbers. Life wants to climb and to overcome itself climbing. And behold, my friends, where The tarantula has its hole. The ruins of an ancient temple rise, and behold it with an enlightened eyes. Verily the man who once piled his thoughts to the sky with these stones, he like the wisest knew the secrets of all life, and the struggle and equality are present even in beauty, and also war for power and more power. That is what he teaches us here in the plainest parable. How divinely vault and arches break through each other in a wrestling match, and how they strive against each other with light and shade, the godlike strivers with such assurance and beauty. Let us be enemies too, my friends, and let us strive against one another like gods. Alas, then, the tarantula, my old enemy, bit me with godlike assurance and beauty. It bit my finger. Punishment there must be, and justice, it thinks. And here he shall not sing songs in honor of enmity in vain. Indeed, it is avenged itself, and alas, now it will make my soul to whirl with revenge. And to keep me from whirling, my friend, tie me tight to this column. Rather would I be a stylite even than a whirl in the revenge. Verily, Zarathustra is no cyclone or whirlwind. And if he is a dancer, he will never dance the Tarantula. Thus spoke Zarathustra. All right, so there was I guess it's part 10. If you figure in the lessons, it's like 13 or 14. So just a couple things. You guys that are supporting on Patreon and Subscribestar, thank you very much. I hope you're enjoying the bonus content. And for you guys that want to know more about the different degrees, you go to abercast.com. Just go to the degrees section, find out what works best for you. Remember, there's a 6th degree coming out pretty soon. Especially if you're interested in the tarot card designs, you can sign into the mailing list, the Fulgar Correspondentia. Basically, just sign into the mailing list. And among a ton of other things, one of the things you get is a info dump. Basically, is a text version of every tarot card episode I ever did, I think. And it also gives you a preview of the tarot cards I'm designing. So if you're interested in that, there it is. So thanks again, guys, for the support. I appreciate it. Looking for some more. So if you can, hook me up. And yeah, and we'll do this again next week. We'll do another Zarathustra. We're not going to break it. We're just changing it up. I'm John. This has been the Abercast. Thank you, guys.
Thank you for listening to this episode. Send an email or visit us on social media to let us know what you think about this topic. And please remember to leave a 5-star rate and review.